As 2025 draws to a close, all year long, one question has dogged the most plugged in of football fanatics. What's up with Gianni Infantino? While the cameos by the head of an international sports body at a U.S. president's inauguration, a Middle East peace signing, another for Congo and Rwanda. And why create a peace prize for the said leader of the host nation of next summer's World Cup final? The initiative of one man who runs in the same circles as Donald Trump's Gulf monarchy counterparts? Or is FIFA collectively in a bit of a panic about keeping the United States on side as it weighs tighter visa restrictions on foreigners? If World Cup organizers fear foreign fans might stay away, they're certainly not showing it. Just look at their ticket pricing. Do they know this is soccer and not polo? Will fans from Haiti or Curacao pay thousands per match? Whatever happens, the show will go on, despite the expansion to 48 teams and commercial break-friendly water stoppages. That begs the broader question, is the sky the limit, or is there a point at which greed kills football's golden goose? Today in the France 24 debate, we're asking, with its transactional politics, if FIFA's gone a little bit MAGA. With us from New York, she's investigated the Olympics in Beijing, the World Cup in Qatar. Minky Warden is Director of Global Initiatives at Human Rights Watch. Thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be here.
From the French Atlantic coast city of Nantes, Ronan Evin, Executive Director of Football Supporters Europe. Welcome to the show.
Good evening.
Ruben Slachter is a journalist and commentator at Eurosport. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And he covered the World Cup for the Wall Street Journal back in the day. Craig Kopitas, author of Bear Hunting for the Politburo.
Hey, Francois.
Good to see you. Be sure, by the way, to listen, like, and subscribe to the France 24 debate wherever podcasts are streamed. Now, we have some good news and some bad news. The good news, FIFA allotting cheaper $60 tickets to accommodate the less fortunate who travel to Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. next summer. The bad news is only a small number of those. It's only for 1.2% of the total that'll be sold for that World Cup. Brian Quinn has the story.
A new batch of cheap seats for the World Cup. On Tuesday, FIFA unveiled what it calls supporter entry tier tickets, priced at $60 each.
Fans of the national teams that have qualified for the FIFA World Cup 2026 will benefit from a dedicated ticket pricing tier, which has been designed to make following their teams on football's greatest stage more affordable.
The move follows widespread outcry after the pricing structure for the upcoming tournament began to emerge with the opening of ticket lottery windows last week. Tickets range from $180 to $700 for group stage games, with entry to the final reaching over $8,600. Prices at most levels orders of magnitude higher than 2022's Cup in Qatar. Fan groups have called those levels extortionate, decrying a monumental betrayal of the tournament's traditions of cross-cultural inclusiveness. They point out that the new $60 tickets will make up just 1.6% of each stadium's seats, and that the next cheapest tier is 15 times as expensive.
It is a step into the right direction, but it's clearly not sufficient. The gap between two categories is enormous. So it is a good and a fair price for some, a few hundreds of fans, and then when you move on to the next step on the ladder, it's very, very expensive.
The 2026 World Cup appears set to break new ground for FIFA's money-making proclivities on a number of levels. Newly mandated rest periods for players will open up space for lucrative TV ad slots. Meanwhile, the addition of so-called dynamic pricing based on increased ticket demand is likely to drive costs for fans even higher.
And we saw a clip of you, Ronan Evin, in that report. Behind you, I saw the nice Nantes jersey for the 1980s in the background. Let me ask you, if you charge it, will they come? At the end of the day, will you always find someone to pay for those tickets?
I'm not sure, and I don't think FIFA has the answer neither. There's no market research or anything like that behind it. It's all coming down from a man and in his little entourage. In the end, entire nations are being priced out. Entire parts of the world are being priced out for a competition that is supposedly universal. We run the numbers. If you're coming from Ghana, it will take you about 600 days of average income. If you come from Algeria, just going to the final will take you 400 days of average incomes. So clearly, more than half of the planet cannot even dream to attend the World Cup with prices like this. So yes, there might be clients, there might be not. There will be spectators, tourists that might want to go for one game, but the faithful fans, those that are bringing the atmosphere to the stadium, they're clearly being priced out from the World Cup.
Ruben Slachter, the Dutch, known as the Orange Army, whenever there's a big tournament, will we see the fans, will we see that Orange Army in North America?
Well, a lot less than also if you compare to '94, when there was also the World Cup in the United States, there were a lot more people, and there's the same discussion now in the Netherlands with people not wanting to pay such prices. So yeah, I'm afraid that it will be a bit less orange than usual.
Less orange, but will they fill the seats nonetheless?
I think that the tickets that will be given to the federation will still be okay. But other people, because in general, well, we can remember if you go for the big tournaments, let's say also the last European Championships in Germany, then there's always around 100,000 people in those cities. Okay, to get into the United States, it's a bit harder. I understand that. But yeah, we won't get thousands and thousands of people making the trip. I think small groups that will be the case.
Yeah, it doesn't stop there, Craig Kapitas. There's also now the sophisticated way with resale tickets. Used to be if you had a ticket and you couldn't go, you found a scalper
right.
who disposed of it. Now you can do it through the official venues. But even there, FIFA's taking a bigger than usual cut.
Yeah, I think 15%. The question I always ask when we covered this stuff back in the day, both at World Cups and the Olympics, was where's the crime? If so, where's the prosecution? Mm-hmm. And where are the fans? How come they're not complaining? That doesn't, there used to be...
Ronald's complaining, and he represents fan groups.
Who?
Ronald is complaining, and he represents...
Bless his heart, he doesn't have any power, he doesn't have any money. I like the shirt that's behind him. But the people who have the power, who had it back then, and thank you, Minky, your husband, who helped us out back at the Journal, not all getting fired for this, was the sponsors. There are 7 sponsors of the World Cup, 5 of which are not American companies. You have Aramco. That's the Saudi oil company. Mm-hmm. If there's any extra tickets, believe me, they'll scoop them up. You have Adidas, German, Coca-Cola, American. You have Kia, a car company from Korea, Lenovo, Chinese. You have Qatar Air and Visa. Back in the day, Francois, you could affect change by approaching the sponsors and writing stories and getting the sponsors to give you quotes. Brief example, at the World Cup here in France back in the day,
1998,
we discovered that the soccer balls being played on the field were being made in Chinese detention camps by political prisoners. And of course, Adidas denied this and called the Journal and said, you can't run this. Of course, our next story in the series, we had a reporter who was inside one of the camps. Okay, so you don't see that kind of robust coverage nowadays. Maybe you do, maybe I just don't see it. But it doesn't lead to the 3 things like, what's the crime, who's going to prosecute, and if not, why aren't they?
Mickey Morton, is there a crime, or, this is just, we'll see what happens. You charge more, and if people show up, FIFA makes money, and that's it.
Well, we're about 6 months away from the kickoff of the World Cup, and let's take a step back and pick up on the theme of really who owns the game. And listen, there is no World Cup without players, fans, journalists, and communities. And all of those key actors are being sidelined by FIFA and by the Trump administration, implementing anti-human rights, anti-player, anti-fans rights policies. And yeah, this is also, I would say, about the money behind this, about the greed. Let's use a strong word here. And I would say we can look no further than the FIFA Peace Prize. as an example of the lengths that FIFA will go to, completely outside its mandate, without any transparency, accountability, judges, nominees, or meaningful process, to curry favor with the Trump administration. And that's creating a climate which silences fans and players and journalists.
Is there a crime?
Absolutely. This is not the way. So what's the crime? FIFA signed up in 2016 to the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. Boring, but important. FIFA implemented a human rights policy, set up a human rights advisory board, and hired human rights staff. So FIFA has human rights rules, not just football rules, to implement, and frankly, it's not doing so. And yes, the World Cup is in the US, Canada, and Mexico, but right now, since January 2025, the rules in the United States have changed markedly, and I think it's fair to say that the world is going to be excluded from the World Cup, and that is the crime.
Is it an overstretch, Ronan Evin? Are they going too far?
They're certainly going too far. I mean, there's definitely victims. If at the moment, your supporters of half of the team, or even more than half of the team, those that will be facing entry restriction in the US, you deserve to follow your team to the World Cup, and then you're going to be left on the side of the road. If you're a fan with a disability, with the current ticketing policy that is purely based on profit, you have to pay a minimum of $14,000 to follow your team all the way to the final if you need a companion to come with you to the stadium. So these people are being victims of the policy. And if you add on top of this, anyone that comes from a vulnerable group, LGBT plus fans, anyone that are currently concerned for their safety and security when traveling to the US, these are also people that are going to stay at home. So at the moment, a lot of European fans are thinking, this is too expensive, this is too dangerous. The rules of the games are not clear, because at the moment, this is a competition without rules. There is strictly no security doctrine. This is complete improvisation. So a lot of people are thinking, this is not worth it, I'm going to stay at home. And we are Europeans. We are in a very privileged position. We don't need a visa. We have a lot more purchasing power than most of the world. So again, can tell you, this is going to be a World Cup for wealthy Americans and a happy few that will travel from elsewhere in the world, but not a competition that will, quote unquote, unite the world, as FIFA likes to claim.
Come on, FIFA, you can do better, said British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in a Tuesday tweet, equally outraged about the pricing. A fellow Arsenal fan, the mayor-elect of New York City, Zoran Mamdani.
The cheapest ticket to the World Cup final, which will be here in New York City and New Jersey, according to the Croatian Federation, is $4,000.
Right.
$4,000.
That's a huge amount of money.
That is five
Nobody
times.
can go.
Who can go to that? And that's 5 times more expensive than it was to go
So what
to
do
the
you
final in
want the price to
Qatar.
be?
I want the price to be something that's affordable. This, you'd have to mortgage your house to be able to afford that for a lot of people.
A lot to unpack there, Ruben Slachter. First of all, I mean, this shows of how much football has gone global. I know that he's next to the host stadium there, the next mayor of New York, but still, the fact that he really is an Arsenal fan, and the fact that this is, what does that tell you? Does it tell you about how much football has a global reach, and this global reach is being shut down in the way that Ronan described it?
Well, it is shut down, but the whole goal of FIFA is, of course, to open it to the whole world, because that's the whole thing, right? Well, football was at the time it was just a European game with some South Americans coming, and we invited some other teams, and that was it. If we look back, for example, the World Cup in Qatar, there we saw that it is already shifting. We saw that during that World Cup, we were sitting here for a debate 4 years ago. I remember that. And we were talking about all the issues that were there. But if you look back at that tournament, the whole world, except Europe, found it a very nice tournament. So that's what FIFA is trying to find out.
But they understand that it's a television spectacle, and that most of the people, in any case, won't go to the stadium?
Yeah, but I think that they don't care. I think that if you look at it, since Gianni Infantino is there, we were talking before the debate about the fact that we were having a lot of criticism on Sepp Blatter at the time, and that we're now almost calling for Sepp Blatter, that we are missing him. Well, who would have thought? Yeah. Who would have thought that? So yeah, that's where we're heading now, because the greed is the only thing that remains in FIFA. That's what they're looking for. And where's the money? The money is in the US, the money is in the Arab countries, the money is potentially in China, in India. So that's what they're heading for.
Yeah, Minky Wharton, it was 10 years ago exactly that it was the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation that exposed corruption in the high halls of FIFA in Zurich. And now it's very, very different. What happened in 10 years?
Well, actually, I would like to answer the statement that everyone enjoyed the World Cup in Qatar by pointing out that thousands of migrant workers died delivering FIFA's World Cup in Qatar, building stadiums in the desert. Not everyone enjoyed the World Cup in Qatar. And in fact, those were totally preventable deaths. And just to pick up on this theme, obviously, the World Cup was supposed to, and FIFA was supposed to move forward in the new era of not having human rights horror shows. I mean, let's also say the World Cup in Russia was not very good for press freedom or civil society or also migrant workers. So, you know, this World Cup in 2026 was supposed to be both the largest ever, but also the first to have a human rights policy. And I think that's very important. The corruption piece of it is actually very important. And I believe an ethics committee violation has been filed over the awarding of the FIFA Peace Prize. So, you know, I don't think we can say that it's a new era at FIFA at all.
True.
There is still time, obviously, to return to have upholding human rights and ending corruption, but the clock is ticking.
Back in 2013 at a symposium in Zurich, the then number 2 of FIFA, Jérôme Valk, expressed his annoyance with all the pesky paperwork in preparing the 2014 World Cup. It was to be in Brazil. Valk said, "I will say something which is crazy, but less democracy is sometimes better for organizing a World Cup. When you have a very strong head of state who can decide, as maybe Putin can do it in 2018, a nod to that World Cup, that is easier for us organizers than a country such as Germany, where you have to negotiate at different levels."
Well, there's nothing new there. That goes back to Juan Antonio Samaranch at the IOC said the same thing. Brundage, who ran the U.S. Olympic Committee, Blatter, all of them, they prefer to be in these totalitarian countries. I mean, look, we have a problem here between you and Minky. I want to try and smooth it out.
Okay.
The fact is that football fans care more about going to a football game than they do about human rights. And that is a shame. And every time back in the day, when we did a story that pointed this out, a various specific story, the football fans didn't care. They still went to the games. They still bought the merchandise. That was just the reportage. Now, what's going on now is capitalism. I love this guy, Infantino. He's a wonderful character for a writer. He is unfettered capitalism. Capitalism is a wonderful thing. But when you get unfettered capitalism being funded by a United States president who's also a felon, it reaches the level of true glory, of real money, power, and greed. And that's what you're seeing here. Now, you look at the prosecutions that are going on. I'm talking criminal prosecutions, not internal stuff that goes to the arbitrage of sports in Switzerland, which is a creation of the IOC and is completely feckless. In 2015, when they started, there were 40 individuals and corporations charged with racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering, over $200 million in bribes and kickbacks. Of those, 16 people went to jail, okay? There was also at that same time another probe that landed some people in jail in Switzerland, which was over the bidding in Qatar. Right now, in 2026, there is only one potential criminal prosecution going on in Switzerland, which involves the awarding of media rights. Whether that gets any traction, who knows? We never see any coverage of this. So it's all about the money now, and it's a damn shame. And I don't know what the solution is. You tell me, when are the fans going to stop going to games? When are you going to stop supporting your team and putting Europe One shirts behind you on the screen? This is where it is. If the fans don't get involved and take this on, this is going to continue.
Do you fall back on club sides instead at some point? What point, or has the World Cup just remained bigger than everything?
Well, what we heard also during the video was that, and that's the beautiful thing about the World Cup. Well, I've been lucky to have been there in Russia to experience it once. It is that whole party, everybody together. If we're going to a Nantes game or whatever, yeah, it's your team against the other, and it's a whole different atmosphere. That's what should be making the World Cup a fantastic tournament, because it's the opportunity of cultures to meet each other and to have just a fantastic experience. And that's what we've heard from all the tournaments before. But what you say is right. As fans, but even more as players and countries, you should step up. And that's the only power. And that's what I wanted to say. I fully agree with what Minky was saying about the whole human rights in Qatar. The only thing is that the people in the world, when they're remembering the Qatar World Cup, the only thing they remember is Lionel Messi standing there with the World Cup. It's very harsh to say, but unfortunately that's a fact.
Renaud Evin, this is an important point, because take France as an example, right? 40% of football fans here support either Paris Saint-Germain or Marseille. Those are the two clubs that have the biggest following. 60%, that means they support smaller clubs like yourself. For them, the national side matters a lot. At what point can you turn your back on the national side? Is the answer never?
No, I think the statement that fans don't care about human rights is extremely misguided and misinformed. We are just like any other proportion of the society. So some of us care, some care less, but also we're directly impacted. We care about freedom of expression. We care about freedom of association. And when it comes to international tournaments, Qatar has been an utter failure in terms of attracting fans from across the world. Very few Europeans traveled to Qatar. There was other people that were filling in the stadium. It was an operational failure. It hasn't been properly reported for reasons that have to do with the fact that it's extremely hard to work, I imagine, as a reporter in Qatar, but has been a failure. And that shows that the statement from Jérôme Valcke has never been less true. What we see now in the US, but it was exactly the same thing in Qatar, is that it's impossible to organize a tournament in a non-democratic society, because the contract that you sign are not worth the paper they're written on. The bid has been completely forgotten, and the rules of the game are changing constantly. So if you ask now to FIFA staff if they are enjoying operating in a country where fundamental freedoms are being constantly threatened, they certainly don't. And then when it comes to our rights, our own human rights as football fans, to be treated fairly by the police, to be able to express ourselves, to be able to be ourselves in the stadium, of course we care, because we are directly impacted.
And there's a lot of time between now and the month of June. We talked about greed. There's also ideology mixed in. A World Cup in the United States these days means fans having to purge critical social media posts before they apply for a visa. And questions over travel bans, freshly extended this week to citizens of Senegal and Ivory Coast, both qualified for the tournament. So far, it's unclear whether the U.S. will issue waivers for those who possess tickets for the tournament. It's not just fans. Iran's scoring sensation, Mehdi Taremi, whose 10 goals in qualifiers powered his national side, did his military service in the Navy of Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards, which is under U.S. sanctions. Jury's still out over whether or not the Olympiacos striker will be allowed to travel to the tournament. If you're a betting woman, Mickey Warden, do you expect to see Mehdi Taremi playing in the World Cup in the United States?
So to take a step back, let's actually just say what these restrictions are. And I think even after the FIFA Peace Prize was awarded, this enormous gift from FIFA to Donald Trump, immediately following that, the U.S. administration announced that tourists from 42 countries will have to submit 5 years of social media history, a decade of email addresses, your personal and detailed family information, your private information before entering the U.S., and then add to that the executive order from last June, which keeps out citizens from countries like Iran, Haiti, and others that have qualified. I think you're looking at an escalating roster of people who cannot attend. Players, as must be able to attend. So Iran's player must be able to attend. But what about fans? Human Rights Watch has worked for more than a decade with really incredibly courageous Iranian women fans who for 40 years were not able to attend matches in their own stadiums, right? Even the sister of the Iranian national team captain could never see her brother play. So the requirements of human rights also include that fans have a right to attend. And just to pick up on Ronan's theme of fans and human rights, I would say they have become increasingly vocal about their rights to both attend and actually to use football matches as a protest point, right? There's a long tradition of political protest in football, but the new restrictions from the Trump administration are really going to silence and attempt to censor people who have opinions that they don't like. I should also add that the travel bans may apply to LGBT people. Trans people will have to travel as their birth gender. So there are lots of restrictions that we've never seen before for a major sporting event. But the one common theme is that the world is not welcome at this World Cup.
What's interesting, Ruben Slaughter, is that you have players also who've become increasingly political athletes of late. Yes, you have Cristiano Ronaldo paraded recently at the White House when there was the visit by the Saudi crown prince. He plays his football in Saudi Arabia. But you also have other players who are outspoken. So the volatility surrounding this World Cup, it could come from either end. We don't know what's going to happen on the one hand with the visas, and we don't know how the players themselves are going to react.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree if they are become more vocal. Yeah, what we can say though is that players are becoming more and more. They are becoming the big stars. It's not more about the teams, but yeah, the Ronaldos and the Messis. They completely transformed this sport into a sport of individual athletes. We've seen it this week with Messi, for example, being in India when there were so many people just coming only to see him. That's where we're heading right now. But if they are going to step up, yeah, I will get it again back to my own country, the Netherlands. We've seen it also for Qatar. There was a lot of discussion about having the captain's armband with the one love on it. Are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? In the end, it was always a mixed solution, but never a real statement. I would hope that they are going to step up, but I'm not so sure.
Why are you shaking your head, Craig?
Because that's silly, wishful thinking. I'm going to mention a name that probably maybe 1% of our viewers know, Colin Kaepernick, an American football player who put his politics on the field and who Trump and others destroyed, never let him play again. I could also go back to the 68 Olympic Games when you had the two black runners who, when they won the gold and the silver, they went up on the podium and they raised their fists in the air with a glove. That's the kind of protest that you need. And believe you me, Lionel Messi is more concerned about his next tattoo and his next paycheck than he is about standing up for human rights. And anyone who thinks otherwise is just kidding themselves. That said, FIFA has one nightmare. This is the nightmare that Infantino goes to bed every night hoping it's not going to come true. And that's going to be 2 days before a game that one of the countries that Trump describes, his word, not mine, shithole countries such as Haiti playing Scotland in Boston, Trump's going to say, I don't want them in the United States, move that game. And Trump could do it. And I think he would do it. And personally, I bet that he will do it. There's a number of those games. Haiti has 3 games in the United States. Trump has described that word I used. Of all of the African countries, he's described as, quote, shithole countries. There are others on that list. He will do it. Infantino's tried to pay this guy off, even though I think he enjoys, hanging out with the billionaires. But that's the fear, because the amount of money, as you know, that goes into the broadcast setup of a World Cup stadium is huge.
Yeah, well, we'll see exactly that's the issue that they have. That before, when
do you
FIFA
agree
was,
there's this much uncertainty surrounding the tournament that there could be surprises all the time? Ronald was talking about surprises.
I'm not the biggest Trump specialist, but what we can say, I think, about him is that he is completely unpredictable. So he will do whatever he wants. And when FIFA, for example, in many other World Cups, they were having the control about their own tournaments. This is a big question mark for this.
Trump's promises are not worth an ounce of his spittle.
There you go.
He's over and over and over for the past decade we've seen this.
Yeah.
So, Ronan Evin, listening to Craig Capitas and following that logic, is Gianni Infantino perhaps not as interested in money as we think, but thinking one step ahead and thinking, I'll flatter Donald Trump so that we have less of this volatility and these nightmare scenarios that he just described? Is that a possibility?
I imagine this is part of the strategy. Clearly, Gianni Infantino likes to cozy up with authoritarian leaders as well. There's a bit of a track record now on that. But is it working? I mean, as you just pointed out, Trump could decide, yes, that the team can't enter the US, could also decide that the games are moving from one city to another, or that he doesn't want Canada or Mexico to organize games anymore. And the strategy of Gianni Infantino has been for months, but it was already the same in Qatar, to announce this is going to be the best World Cup ever. This leader, in this case, Trump, is my best mate. How does he apply any sort of pressure? He has zero leverage on the Trump administration at the moment. So I agree with what was said earlier. If Trump says tomorrow the Haitian team doesn't enter the US, Gianni Infantino and FIFA will have absolutely no power over the Trump administration and won't be able to apply any pressure. So I do think the strategy is extremely risky, and I think FIFA is very likely to pay a high price for it.
And you could spare a thought for teams that are not going to the tournament. Take, for instance, Iraq and the United Arab Emirates. They finished tops in the first part of qualifying before a final Asian qualifiers tournament. Now, there was this 11th hour change in the format in June. The Asian Federation awarding hosting rights for this tournament not to Iraq and the Emirates, who were top ranked, but to Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Without explanation, they were made the top seeds. The Athletic reporting that the higher seeds came with double the days off compared between matches compared with what opponents got, sparking the ire of Oman's coach, Carlos Queiroz. They knew exactly what they were doing, he said. The report talks about the FIFA boss's links to the Gulf, how Qatar provided Mr. Infantino with a luxury villa before the 2022 World Cup there, and he continues to have unlimited access to a state-owned private jet. Saudi Arabia, which has been awarded hosting rights for the 2034 World Cup, has also given generously to FIFA and to Infantino's at Infantino is a regular at major events there. So yeah, it's this question. Again, we're asking about the motives, Mickey Warden, of Gianni Infantino, and I know that you worked a lot on the Qatar World Cup. Your thoughts on this?
Well, so over a period of 12 years, Human Rights Watch documented preventable migrant worker deaths, thousands of deaths building World Cup infrastructure in Qatar. And we are also documenting exactly the same thing happening right now in Saudi Arabia. A migrant worker died falling to his death on the Aramco Stadium this year. And for example, in a report that we put out this time last year, we were able to show that 800 migrant workers died between January and July of 2024. So we're talking an extremely high human cost for these major sporting events. I'd also like to pick up on the theme of what nightmares could happen in the United States in relation to the World Cup. There's not only the nightmare where the Haitian men's national team is not allowed to compete. There's, the consequences for communities is very high. And I would say the biggest human rights nightmare on the horizon is that the World Cup itself, happening in 11 cities across the U.S., that's 78 games, could actually be some sort of an ICE dragnet. That's the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Division, which has masked men who are arresting and deporting people and separating families. And Human Rights Watch has just published new research showing that in the 11 host cities, in fact, more than 92,000 people were arrested and deported in the area of the 90 of the 11 host cities between January and October of this year. So there are a lot of human rights nightmares on the horizon. We also documented a family separation at the Club World Cup final in New Jersey at MetLife Stadium, where the FIFA final will also take place for the World Cup next year.
Are you advocating at Human Rights Watch a boycott of the World Cup?
We're not advocating for a boycott of the World Cup. We didn't advocate for one for Qatar. We advocated for protecting migrant workers' rights, for upholding the rules, for not implementing a dragnet across host cities. There are people, and I'm going to return to the theme of Haiti. Just imagine the Haitian men's national team has qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 50 years. There are hundreds of thousands of Haitians who live in the United States entirely lawfully. They are in status, they've applied for asylum, or they have something called TPS, temporary protected status. As of February, Donald Trump is going to make all of those people illegal. So turning people who are legally here into illegal residents. And then the World Cup is going to come. Of course, they'll want to celebrate and to cheer their national team wherever they're playing. So you can see the type of perfect storm that is being set up, where there could be terrible family separations and deportations that very seriously violate human rights.
Craig Capitas?
Back in the day when perhaps we were all more enlightened when we did stories on FIFA and corruption and the IOC and other sporting bodies, we used a lot of the material supplied by Human Rights Watch and other human rights organizations because it's fantastic reportage. But what we did with that reporting is we went to the sponsors and we said, what do you think about this? And the sponsors got upset because they knew that John Hancock, for instance, which used to be a sponsor.
So will sponsors get upset if there are this nightmare scenario that Minky described, where you have Haitian fans showing up to celebrate and there's an ICE raid?
Well, I don't think they care, but let's make it more personal here. Did you call up any of the sponsors to join us tonight? I'm sure Aramco would not have sent a representative. I'm sure Visa wouldn't have sent a representative. Qatar Air, Kia, Lenovo, Coca-Cola, or Adidas would not have sent a rep. But back in the day, they would have to respond. Now they don't have to. And I would suggest that if any reporter even called these people for a comment now, they wouldn't even answer the phone.
Ruben Slaughter, of course, these are hypotheticals, right? Still, is this World Cup very different from anything we've seen before?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, of course it is, because there's people who can't travel to see a game, for example. That's already a big difference. And there will be, we will go for more than a month of the big Donald Trump show, which we have never seen during any of these of such an event. The sports, we'll see, but I think that the sports won't be the central point of discussion during the tournament, and that will be the whole discussion, of course.
Of course, Ronan Evin, there's been World Cups staged in the past in places that did not have great democracies. 1978, that was under the dictatorship in Argentina. We've talked about Qatar more recently. Is this time different, though? What are you sensing among the fans you're talking to? Are there many who still want to go?
I think a lot of people were expecting this to be a normal World Cup. Remember the atmosphere when the US, Canada, and Mexico were selected in 2018 was celebration, because there was Russia, there was Qatar. A lot of people didn't feel safe or didn't feel comfortable traveling to these two countries, and the US was supposed to be a normal World Cup. This is far, far gone. I would say what dominates on top of the figure of Trump and the personification of the tournament is the uncertainty. In Russia, in Qatar, South Africa, Brazil, we more or less knew what to expect. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but we knew what to expect. Right now, the uncertainty is really killing fans as they are trying to plan. There's no clarity as to what will happen to the stadium. We will be in charge of what the police will be allowing or not allowing. And so, yeah, this is a new type of tournament, definitely. Hopefully, it's just one tiny accident in the history of the World Cup. And then the prices are, the price of the tickets have been multiplied by 5 since Qatar. That was already a relatively expensive World Cup by modern standards. So the decision to completely price out fans from traveling to the US is unprecedented and will have an influence on the atmosphere and the overall perception of the World Cup. So I don't know if this will be the last drop for people to be eventually discussed with FIFA and the World Cup, but I know that a lot of fans, either at the stadium or in front of their TV, will feel uncomfortable.
Will feel uncomfortable? Will this tournament alter the game? A lot of people are quite upset about these water breaks. I'm sorry, they're calling them hydration breaks, turning the soccer into American football by turning it into a game with basically 4 quarters instead of 2 halves. And by the way, Ronan, FIFA saying they're going to have these hydration breaks in the interest of the players. And they're going to do it, though, even no matter if there is a roof and no matter what the temperature is. Your thoughts on that? Does that, in a way, kill football?
The same organization that doesn't speak to players' unions suddenly cares about players' health and welfare. No, this is a manipulation of the rules of the game. I think we are going to see more of this. I think there will be a halftime show at the opening, at the final. This is all down to, again, the governance of FIFA. One person being allowed to do whatever they want without any checks and balance, and then maintaining their power by distributing revenues to the member associations. We talked a lot about ticket prices. In the end, the only reason why the tickets are so expensive is that more money can be redistributed to the member association to consolidate the power of the president of FIFA. So this is also a red line that wasn't really crossed, at least in modern times and of the World Cup, manipulating the rules of the game. But there's absolutely no limit for Gianni Infantino's FIFA, unfortunately.
There is, unless nobody goes to the World Cup. And we'll see what happens in terms of those ticket sales. Ronan Evin, I want to thank you so much for joining us from Nantes. Good luck to the Canaries and staying afloat there. Minky Warden in New York City. Ruben Slachter, I want to thank as well. Craig Capitas, thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.